Hi guys, I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to be going over my training over the last 2 weeks of being back in the gym. The whole point of this video is just to give you an insight into how I'm structuring my training plan to help myself to best rebuild any lost muscle and strength. Also be slightly touching on my nutrition plan in terms of my calories as well as my macronutrients. But with that, I'm going to roll on a voiceover with some of my training clips for the last 2 weeks. So let's jump straight into this. The first thing we're going to look at is my training split. But before I speak on what I'm currently doing, to paint the best picture, we're just going to look at what I was doing before lockdown, and we can see why I'm currently doing what I'm doing in a minute. So prior to lockdown, I was running your typical PPL split, which is push-pull legs. This was a 6-day split where I was training 6 days and taking 1 day off, and then straight back into the first week of the training, following a hypertrophy program. But anyway, the point of doing that program, or kind of the end of the second, I was going into the second cycle of the program. I had got to a point where my strength was quite high. I was handling a lot of training volume, so my volume capability was quite high. So when lockdown happened, it made a big transition into only, having around, let's say, 50% of my play with or to train with was typically quite useless. So pretty much safe to assume over that period, I lost a little bit of muscle kind of fullness now and strength. But as I said, my focus now is to rebuild muscle. So looking at it now, I've decided to transition into a upper-lower high-frequency program where I'll be training upper-lower, take a rest day, jump straight back into upper body and lower body, then train arms, and then repeat back into the cycle. So we're training around 5 times a week, 5-6 times a week, taking 1 to 2 rest days completely off training. So the reason why I've opted for a high frequency training split is it helps me to keep volume pretty much nice and low. I can maintain 8 to 12 sets per body part per week, which I think is a good place to start rebuilding up some of my kind of recovery capabilities and slowly drop feeding the volume back to that higher end. Big question is, why am I doing this? So it's for 2 main reasons. One being, it allows me to keep my volume nice and low. I can maintain that 8 to 12 sets per body part per week, at least for the first 2 to 3 weeks of training, where I can slowly drop feed in the volume back up to that higher 15 to 22 sets per body part per week. So, and the second reason kind of being, I can build more familiarity with movement patterns as I'll be training kind of each body part a lot more frequently, so I can execute on my squats, my bench press, my overhead press on a much more frequent basis and kind of nail my technique back down before focusing on kind of increasing other training variables like volume and weight. So pretty much I'm using this kind of training split as a means of reteaching my body how to train again. So starting pretty simple, the upper low program, you can kind of chuck in 1 to 2 exercises per body part, focus on intensity, technique, and just getting things done before really trying to work that one. So pretty much. So the more important question really is how I'm actually finding this. So I'm not the biggest fan, to be honest, of upper low body splits, only because you really struggle to get kind of pump on a singular body part when hitting full upper body sessions. But at the end of the day, when it comes to kind of picking a training program, even in this return to the gym comeback period, the main thing to focus on is what kind of training split can you best adhere to. So what training split can you do for the longest period of time consistently without kind of getting bored or falling off or not just giving you 110% kind of effort throughout it. Because if you absolutely hate your training split, you're just not going to stick to your plan or get the most out of it. So even if the upper lower program is probably the most optimal for somebody else, doing this training split, if you're not going to adhere to it, you're not going to get any benefit from it. So you're better off going into even a body part split, a full body split, or PPL, whichever split you're going to do. Just the one that's going to give you the best adherence, probably the best way to go. So let's get how I found dealing with the loss in strength. To be honest, I've not really allowed the kind of loss in strength to affect me psychologically. If anything, I'm pretty happy about it. It kind of feels like I'm a novice again, so I kind of get in the gym and session to session, my logbook numbers are jumping up substantially. So the strength is just heaping, like 10 kilos increase on a bench press or an RDL on every single kind of training session. So that kind of feels great again. You just feel like you're making progress, start from scratch. That's kind of the main good point. I'm currently focusing mainly in the 8 to 12 rep range. I'm not really hitting much underneath that, maybe 1 or 2 sets at like 6 reps. Because again, kind of my main kind of focus since being back in the gym has been on kind of exercise execution, being able to control the loads, using eccentrics, and just making sure I'm nailing all the basics. While strength, let's say however you are someone that kind of enjoys lifting heavy, your main focus is strength training and you take pride in that, still no need to worry if you've kind of gone back in the gym and your numbers aren't as good as they were before. Components that, or things like muscle memory, are going to play a big part in kind of your comeback. It's only going to take you half the time to to regain that strength than it did in the initial time spent progressing to that original lift. So what I would say is still focus on technique, kind of exercise execution, speed, getting the fundamentals down, kind of your form and your setup, and maybe get a logbook where you can track your numbers and just make sure each week you're progressing, or session to session you're progressing again, and kind of give it at least a month or two, and then, you know, retest your numbers and you can make see that, you know, you're back to where you were, or even better. Lockdown. DOMs and muscle soreness. This has been a big one. In the gym, a lot of people have been complaining about, you know, muscle soreness. They're feeling pretty bad. They've gone pretty gun-ho with the training straight away when gyms reopened. Social media as well, I've been seeing a lot of. Personally, I've not really felt any bad DOMs or kind of big muscle soreness. This is pretty much because I have a 4 to 6 week comeback plan. First week, I was pretty conservative with my training numbers. For example, on my compound lifts, I started at around 50 to 55% of my 1 rep maxes. There I was the other day. In week 1, I started at about 30 kilo dumbbells, because pre-lockdown I was hitting the 60 to 65 kilo dumbbells for sets of 5 to 8. I started at about 30 kilo dumbbells, only maintaining 6 to 8 reps, you know, keeping about 5 reps in reserve for everything. So this allowed me to kind of focus more on getting reps in, paying attention to my form and execution of the exercise, as I just wasn't hitting these kind of numbers before lockdown and during lockdown. Because of this and not training to failure, I just have not, you know, kind of had any DOMs. If I've had anything, it's been pretty mild, nothing too bad. So when I get back to my next session, I'm pretty fresh again. Another probably big reason for my lack of DOMs is I've been doing a lot of mobility work. In about 20 to 30 minutes of kind of pre-training mobility before I've left for the gym. Then when I get to the gym, before I've trained, I've done another 10 to 15 minutes of kind of any dynamic movements, which are kind of linked to the exercises that I'm going to be doing. And then at the end of my training, kind of post-workout, I would chuck in a little bit of massage work, so like get a massage pillow out or the foam roller to help kind of just get some more movement and blood in the muscle, which we all know helps with recovery and kind of that mitigates that soreness. I'm just going to be going to week 3 soon, so I'd suggest most people, if you've got bad DOMs or you're kind of feeling a lot of pain, maybe just chuck in a little bit of mobility work at the start of your training and some static stretching at the end of your workout or massage work. Secondly, take a look at your training. You might be doing too much. Again, this current period for the next kind of first 4 to 6 weeks, you do not need to be training too hard to kind of rebuild any muscle or strength. You can get away with doing a lot less. Memory kind of play its role in our training, take things easy. Don't want to overreach right now. We want to save kind of the hard training techniques and, you know, the big lifting numbers, that 85%, 90% where we're training really heavy using kind of intensity techniques for later on in our training cycle. So right now, just look at it as a period to reteach yourself how to train as opposed to rushing to try rebuild muscle. It's gonna come. Take care of recovery, because this is a big component. You do not want to be sore. Soreness is not correlated towards muscle gain. Another big kind of thing I found with coming back to the gym is that my training times have been a lot shorter. Especially in my first week of training, training times were down to around 45 to 60 minutes, some even 35-minute workouts for some of the upper body days. Pretty much because training volume is still really low, training loads are low, so I'm not having to do too many warm-up sets, and I'm not doing that much volume. Most is down to 8 to 10 sets per body part per week for the first week. So if you are finding your training times are a little bit shorter or much shorter than they were before, and you feel you're not going as hard, it's okay right now. You most likely aren't training as hard, and that's fine. We just don't need to be training at such a high intensity right now. You want to be keeping your sessions quite short, kind of rest time short anyway, at least just to rebuild some of that cardiovascular capacity and your endurance, so you can kind of hit your numbers now whilst they're still low and you're not kind of hitting those big numbers. So that's been my first 2 weeks back in the gym. Home training just does not compare to training in the gym. It is much better. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got plenty more videos ready to drop soon.